And welcome to another edition of Mailbag. And like in the previous set of mailbags, I'm recording a single header for many answers that you guys have left on the channel, and there is a lot to go through this evening. So before we get going, remember these are mailbag questions and comments that you guys leave on the channel that are well worth actually sharing with the wider community. But before we start, we always go through parish notices, which are, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, why not? Hit the subscribe icon. If you want to be notified about when videos hit the channel about things like this thing that's just off shop, which is the IDA 2400, that's the bell icon. If you like the contents of the video you're just about to watch, you know what, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps the video on the YouTube algorithm. Also, leave comments down below. I do read them, I respond to them, and that's the reason why we're having this mailbag conversation now. And finally, for less than the price of a cup of coffee, consider supporting the channel by becoming a member of the TMTG community. The address is down below, as are the Instagram and Facebook tags where the normal channel notices are posted. But now back to this particular mailbag. Okay, the next one comes from Nader Harry, and this is in response to the initial setup options for the Roland TB3, a video I did in April 2019. And he or she writes, can I set the TB3 so it only takes over the tempo in the MIDI channel and also sends it on without that internal sequencer starting? And the problem with this is in the MIDI standard 1.0, which of course we've only just superseded with 2.0 in the last 2 years, the clock signal is independent to the channel data. So effectively, even though you can say to receive on a specific channel, the clock signal will always be a generic channel. So the problem with that is that the clock signal is generic, and also a lot of start-stop commands are also generic and in terms of they're channel independent. And that's kind of the thing you're running into. Some older channels seem to need to receive the channel, seem to have the channel on the receiving channel and set to the sending channel, if that makes any sense. And therefore the clock source is sent over that channel. But most of definitely a lot of the ARIA gear and the boutique gear is set with this clock being independent. And if you set the clock for anything other than internal, if it receives a start command and a stop command, it will start to run its internal sequencer. And that's probably the issue you're running into, and there is nothing you can do about it. I've had another question virtually along the same lines of this on something else, and I've got a friend of mine who really is into the ARIA equipment. You know, he knows far more about it than I do. So I kind of pinged him a little while back and asked him this specific question, and as far as he can tell, he can find no command or Roland have not shared any commands that allow you to disable either the start-stop command control message or change the way the clock works on the unit other than internal or external. So I'm sorry, that probably doesn't make an awful lot of sense, but that's really how the situation works. Okay, the next one comes from Be Deep, and this is in response to how to back up and restore patches on the Roland System-1, a video I did in September 2020. And he writes, Roland lost my account, so I can't get my SH101 and System-1 plugins, which I managed to get through Xmas giveaways, LOL. I did find a fan-made piece of software a few years ago, which was a very basic app that allowed you to preset patches to put into banks. If you or anyone finds it, please link me. And I do think I know what piece of software he's talking about. And I have to be honest and say I've lost the link to it as well. But this is something that someone else has mentioned to me before Christmas. in that they registered an account, got the plugins registered, and then went to use the account and it's found that they couldn't log in. And when going through Roland support, be told that their account could not be found or recovered. There seems to be a number of things that have happened during the switchover. I mean, I had a bugger's muddle of a job getting my plugins registered when they swapped to the Roland Cloud account, because I had to re-register my account, and of course because I had to re-register my account, they said that I didn't have the plugins, and I had to go back to in fact I think I actually found the email from them confirming that they'd been purchased, at which point they then did something in the background. But I don't think the swap to the cloud for a lot of people has been particularly smooth, I have to be honest, and that's kind of a shame. Moving to the Roland Cloud was a pain, but moving to the Roland Cloud and making it really difficult was even more of a pain. What I was aware of is that there were a couple of third-party utilities for patch bank management that actually were around, but I downloaded a couple of these things and I found them not to be particularly good. And I haven't seen any pop up in the user groups for quite some time. So, honestly, I have to be honest and say I use the Roland Cloud, not because I want to, because that's probably the easiest way to do this stuff. The old utility that preceded the Roland Cloud, that actually was quite a good library manager, I have to be honest. But because of the way the whole thing has changed now, you just can't use the damn thing anymore, and I find that annoying. But c'est la vie. I think the problem with a lot of these third-party tools is they become a project for someone. Someone says, I need to do this. They build it, and then they maintain it for a bit, and then they realise that they can't maintain it in a professional manner that would be expected by somebody buying software. And then they move on to something else, and it just kind of gets left, which is a shame. But that's kind of what happens with open source software. And I'm going back to my day job now. We have lots of issues with open source, specifically around maintenance and support. Operating systems change, but the open source nature of the software is dependent on a group of developers changing things, and that kind of is an issue. You end up having to support a lot of it internally, then you start changing the code base, and then all of a sudden you're away from the code base everybody else is using. It's an interesting conundrum for businesses, but for small musicians, it's an even bigger pain in the bum. Anyway, I'll publish this. If somebody is able to help, maybe they could leave a comment below and I'll pass it on to BD.